Welcome to Inside the Sound Chamber. My name is Don Simmons. I'm very excited with our next guest, Mike Tamburo. Mike Tamburo is a world-renowned musician, composer, artist, and educator. He is known and loved for his transformational live concert performances, and I've been there, and believe me, you really want to go. And he works with personally curated sound of gongs, bells, and other metal instruments. He has spent his life serving and exploring the power of music. His concerts and workshops are heart centered, uplifting, sonically multidimensional, life affirming experiences that focus on self transformation through conscious listening and breathing. Since 1994, Tamburo has shared more than 2,000 concerts and workshops. He's recorded over 70 albums of ecstatic and transcendental music, as well as folk, drone, ambient, and sometimes unclassified sounds. I get that part. An early adaptee of meditation, Tamburo's music offers space for journeying, self exploration, and deep introspection. I couldn't agree more. Welcome, Mike Tamburo.
Thank you, Don.
This is a great event for you to be here with us with the International Sound Therapy Association Sound Conference of 2024. So excited that you have agreed to come and share your space, your unbelievable talents, and your history of music and sound, and especially with the gongs. As a gong player myself, not to your degree, I always said that if God came and said you could only have one instrument, I would say it would be a gong.
Mm.
So, Mike, I want to ask, I love the creation story. How did you begin in the world of either music or sound? And if it was music, how did you transform to that sound?
Well, it's a long story, so I'll try to keep it short. But it probably all starts out with my father's record collection, which he had a fantastic record collection and was very excited about music and sharing music. But then as a child, I started having like really terrible ear infections, probably from like 6 months until I was about 4 years old. I was having extreme forms of otitis media and having to get tubes in my ears a number of times and some different surgeries so that the fluid would drain from my head. So like I often had like fluid pushed up against my eardrums so they weren't vibrating in a way where like I could hear it. Also, I was experiencing a lot of pain. And then after the tubes, I started getting like ruptures of the eardrums, and so there were these times where I was having either one or both ears like not really working correctly. And my father would sometimes put speakers around me and stuff like that. There was this connection to the physicality of sound from like a really early age. So there wasn't like necessarily this separation between the ear and the rest of the body in terms of how I was learning to perceive music. Also, I had to go through a lot of speech therapy growing up, and so there was this feeling of certain sounds, like putting my hand on my chest and like making a sound over and over again until I can make it, or putting my hand in front of my mouth and making this sound over and over again until I could actually make it. So I'd gone to speech therapy until I was 11. And I think that had a major impact on me. Like also, it introduced me to sign tones and like hearing tests and sitting in an audiology lab and in the dark with like headphones on and like sort of listening into is the sound on yet? Is the sound on yet? And actually kind of starting to like realize, I think at an early age, the sound of my nervous systems when my ears would be somewhat blocked. I'm like, well, I'm hearing something already. Uh, and then like listening really deeply and hearing like a tone in one ear or the other. That had a major impact on me. But my father was always celebrating music and played music. My grandfather played music, and So there was music around. My mother was a writer, so there was a lot of different ways that my intellect was being touched, and I joined my first punk band when I was like 13, and I was singing, and then from there I went and actually before that, I'll rewind to like when I was 5. My father gave me this red tape recorder that I think was really my first instrument, even though there were other instruments around. But like this thing, I loved, and it was really funny the way that he gave it to me. It was my birthday, and he made like a funny voice, and it was like knocking on like something, and we put this in the basement, and he hid it. So I'm like running around the house like trying to find this person that's going like, will you let me out of here, will you let me out of here? And so finally I find this tape recorder, and I just took it everywhere, and I would have it on record with pause, and then like I would unpause it, and then and then pause it again. And so I was like running around the house just like collecting sounds, like getting my mother to say something, and then like hitting pause, and then running outside and waiting for a car to drive by, and like hitting pause. So there was like this like experimenting with sound. My dad,
Introducing.
yeah, and my dad was really into mixtapes, and so like he taught me like early on like how to cut tape, and like if you needed to splice, and so there was also like this physicality with working with tape that was like really early, and there were instruments around, but I was really involved in that. I started playing clarinet and snare drum in the school band. More on the clarinet side. Joined a punk band when I was 13. Then I went and started playing like in a psychedelic band in high school. And I was playing like drums and clarinet and singing. After that, I had a guitar trio that was when I was releasing my first CDs. I had a cassette label in high school, but it was mostly like, recording tapes, giving them to friends. There were some magazines that I was really interested in, and they had tape trading. So like I tape traded with like a few people. That was like a big deal to be like sending a tape to somebody in New Orleans and be like get feedback and get their music as well. So I got involved in like the DIY scene through like punk and psychedelic music like really early on, like in high school. The guitar trio was called Misha, and that's when I started doing my first tours. And then I joined another psychedelic band, and sometime in like 2001, I had my last rupture of my eardrums, both of them, and that was really like painful and uncertain, just the way that things had gone. And I was very much like praying, for however my hearing would come back. I guess that was in 2001, so that I would have been like 20, maybe I was 23 actually, or 24. Um, but at that time, I also started reading like Helmholtz, one of the early physics books, and really looking at how sound was working, and how instruments worked, and really got interested in physics at that point, and was really into like analyzing strings because I play guitar and hammered dulcimer, and I was building string instruments and stuff, and there was a point where I had this sort of realization between harmonic and non-harmonic sound.
Hmm.
That like everything that I'd been looking at was like the harmonic series, and there was like something that was unfolding. But I'd gotten I had singing bowls, and I realized at a certain point that they were not harmonic. And it was the first time that I even though their tone, but I realized that it didn't follow the same series. And that was really fascinating to me that these instruments of different shapes were not the same as say like a string or a flute or my voice. Like there was something different, and got really interested in those relationships. I had heard gongs. Pittsburgh has a fantastic, and for years and years, it's had a fantastic gamelan orchestra. In the '90s, especially, there was like a new music ensemble that was so on it in terms of bringing in like really important works, and there are some pieces from Olivier Messiaen that use the gong in a really powerful way. Um, and so I saw those, and I was like, wow, like the gong is like really interesting. And there was also this like picture. I'm a huge fan of Lamont Young, and he had this picture of himself singing in front of this like giant gong, and it just kind of, there were all these like little, things dropping in, like, about the gong. And I started playing in a band with somebody who had a gong that had a big hole in it, and he would bow. And I was playing a string instrument at the time that I'd built out of a headboard. And I put like a this kind of like a tempura bridge, so like it would buzz, but it was on like this like 56 string instrument that it almost sounded like it would go backwards and as you were playing it, because like the buzzing sound was really fantastic. But at any rate, we were really fascinated by the drone, and I've had like just this huge fascination over the years about how consciousness works with long sounds. And there was something that Lamont Young had said actually that had a huge impact on me, which was tuning is a function of time. And it keeps meaning different things to me. One could be that a certain note would, when plucked, have a certain vibration per second, and that'd be like 440 hertz or something like that. But as you really start to listen to something, so say if I were to strike a gong, all of these different frequencies all layer on top of each other, and then as the gong starts to relax and starts to fade, that sound starts to change. And so you have some frequencies will disappear, and then some get more energy. And so as you listen to something over a period of time, you start to hear like all the subtlety and all of the nuance. Or if I were to put two intervals next to each other and want to listen to like their real interaction, so like perhaps playing like a major third where there's already some beating within the major third, those types of things were very interesting to me to listen to over a period of time. Because if I were just tuning the string or just like strumming it, it's very fast. But to be able to listen to something evolve over a period of time became a huge interest of mine, and brought me toward meditation, brought me toward having really transcendent listening experiences. So I think I may still have on my Facebook page that my job is that I serve the drone, but
and I
and it's
and I
something. Yeah,
I, re-
please.
I really think that that's one of the things about transformation is when you are in that sustained moment, when you cannot go anymore in the brain will start changing. And that's one of the powerful parts about the gong, the drone, and how you present this in a way that's really transformational just by holding the space.
Mm.
You know, is there any, when you give a performance, is there any sort of let's say intention, or how does that work for you? How does intention work when you're playing a gong or something that is sustained instrument?
It's changed over the years, and so we'll say whenever I was quite young, I thought that maybe it was just the instrument that was like doing the work. Um, but that's kind of changed over the years, seeing when it works and when it doesn't work. But I mean, for myself, at this point, I'm trying to create something like truly beautiful. And I'm trying to create a safe space for people to experience something that's like truly beautiful and like truly about awe and marveling and touching aesthetic value. And I've found that this being wide open like this to and beauty can be anything. I was talking to somebody the other day they were like, well, like one part really scared me, and I was like, and they were kind of like going, but it was still beautiful, but it was scary. And I mean, I like think the same thing about like a volcano or like like sometimes like the ocean, like it's beautiful, but like you're standing there and like you're getting pummeled so like I think I'm looking for like that kind of life shifting um, beauty where somebody's really able to like enter into the experience and like kind of through that entry point have something develop within themselves. When I early on, I was like trying to pinpoint somebody comes to me with something and trying to pinpoint something prescriptively. It never really felt right to me because I mean sometimes like somebody would tell me something that was going on in their lives and in a private session or something and I had to Google what was happening in their lives. Like I didn't really know, like, how do I come up with something that is so specific? But I assume that the human condition is shared. I assume that everybody has a hard time, and in different ways. And so to create a really safe space for people just to be able to listen and focus on something more than what was happening the day, to be able to create a space where um, somebody could really um, allow the soundtrack to become an environment for their imagination to do something, or their imagination to be touched. And in fact, since the pandemic, I changed my mind about a lot of things, like during the pandemic, and in terms of trying to make this um, more digestible for even more people. Like I feel, and also like what I feel like my mission is, like I hope I'm creating music for like new ideas. Like I hope that I'm creating music for the imagination to be touched in some way where somebody's going to realize something about their lives or about themselves or something they can do that they wouldn't have realized had they not been in that situation. So like I think that we're a little stuck in the world right now. I mean, there's like so much happening, but like I feel like a lot of people don't know, what to do or how to interact with how everything that's happened over the past few years and how to move forward and I don't know either, but like I feel like there's something that happens through deep listening, through feeling, through being given like a really open space for self exploration through music that that can help. And I've had a lot of times I'm so grateful where like people write me or tell me like like hey that was the day you
Yeah.
know that was
And I
realized.
think I really feel that, you were talking about the pandemic and how things have really changed since then, and it is, and people are stuck. And you're going to be a part of a panel discussion on Saturday, I'm sorry, on Friday at 2:15 with the conference led by Natalie Brown and many of the other presenters. And I just had a conversation with Joshua Leeds, who's our keynote speaker, and he's going to be on the panel as well. And he was talking about the exact same thing. And there's a whole um, uh, experience that's happening that is expanding from where we've been to where we're going. It's that 20th, 21st century movement. And, what I believe you really bring to the large banquet table of life is that safe space with sounds that can expand in your safe zone. Few people can play the gong in a way that allows both expansion and contraction.
Hmm.
And I see, of my experience with you and others I've talked with, that is truly what you bring to the table, and that is what helps one stay safe and yet expanded. And so it's really exciting to have you on that panel discussion to really explore where we are going in the 21st century.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of that comes down to my, my playing techniques and being able to work with dynamics in a certain way. So to understand the dynamic range over time. And a lot of times, the gong can make a sound so huge so quickly, and it can almost be overwhelming. But to be able to really work with like the subtleties and work with bringing out more and more or less and less overtones over a period of time, that's kind of my canvas.
And
But
I really like the way you say that with as a canvas, because I believe a gong has such expansion that it can create these valleys and hills and volcanoes and soft, subtle lily fields almost.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
perfect.
it's very sculptural in a way. It's like,
Yeah.
and I do work with sculptures as well, and instruments that I make, and different bells and things like that. So like there's this physicality of the object, which is created by the maker, and then there's the musician trying to figure out how to create something beautiful with it, and I'm always listening, and my in terms of like my hand striking the gong, it's always serving my ear. And so I'm always, so it's not like the strike is what's leading me. It's like my ear is what is leading me.
Right.
And over the years I've been able to develop a lot of subtlety around that, being able to hear more and more into the gong. And a lot of this came through recording actually, and seeing how many frequencies were happening at one time, and then like seeing on a screen how the energy was changing from one dominant overtone to another dominant overtone, and then realizing physically how much force or what location on the instrument or which mallet was necessary. Making those kinds of realizations. But
That's awesome.
I keep working on myself and trying to get better for, I mean, myself obviously, but very much for my listener. Like I love my audience so much, and I mean they keep me alive, So it's one thing, but just to be able to share something beautiful, and have somebody that doesn't know me come in and be vulnerable enough to close their eyes, and travel along with the music, and find something deep and find something vulnerable. I mean, that's such an honor, to be able to hold that kind of space.
Well, the 2024 conference is called the Wave Makers, and you are definitely creating amazing, beautiful, expansive waves. And we're so happy and very grateful that you are going to be a part of the 2024 conference. Anything else you would like to share with the audience
Yeah, I
about
mean,
what you will be doing and what they can expect?
first I'll say that I love the name in Wave Makers, and in my position in life, I tour fairly constantly, and I also teach. So I feel like almost like every time that I'm like moving across the country in a way that there's like this like wave that follows, and people will pick up some of my tricks, and some of my ways that I'm working with the instruments, and then they start to share it. Then there's like more waves, and then like, so I love how this field builds upon itself. But yeah, I'm just I'm excited to be a part of this. I'm excited to share some of my ideas in the panel, and Natalie sent me some of the questions already, and I looked over them. I feel like there some good conversations can be had, and I'm looking forward to playing for everybody, and I just to celebrate listening, to celebrate consciousness expansion, to talk about where things should go or where things shouldn't go. I mean, it's all exciting.
I love it. We are, on the precipice of a new wave coming in the world of sound therapy, and how it really presents not only from a healing point of view, but also from a consciousness point of view, which is healing. Mike Tamburo, I want to thank you for being here. Thank you for sitting down with us. Thank you for being with the conference. We look forward to seeing you in September.
Yep. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.